Hey Lindsay, I wanted to submit a reply to your video because it really made me start thinking and going back to the reading in this week's chapter. And so um, I really thought about the podcast and what you said, how a lot of counselors see themselves as better than they really are. And one point that I went back and I listened was when the point was made that somewhere around 75% of counselors believe that they are above average, that their client outcomes are above average, which is like statistically impossible, since statistically, like the majority of them are going to fall at the 50% range. So it just doesn't make sense that 75% of counselors can be above average. So I thought that was really interesting as well. And it really makes us take a second look at who we are, deep in our self-awareness. And yeah, so as far as addressing barriers, I really enjoyed going back and listening to that as well. One of the things I thought was really interesting was, I think Sidney Shaw was in Alaska when he was talking about how they wouldn't listen to him. They didn't want anything to do with him. But then he just got out and met them where they were, pulled out a guitar, started playing, and that's how he got to the population. And then also talking about helping someone push a car, to address that population. So it really shows that counseling goes beyond the chair, and it goes to who we are as a person. As far as Colossians, what you were talking about there, I did go back and read it, and I really enjoyed reading verse 6, which says, "Let your speech be always, always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how you should respond to each person." I really enjoyed that because Jesus talked about how we're the salt of the earth. And what is salt worth if it loses its saltiness? Like, what is it worth? So I think that's really important for us to stay relevant to other people, is getting to know them and their cultures and their traditions. And then I think the last thing I wanted to hit on for you was when you talked about the informed consent. I think that's super important when you're working with a client at the very beginning, setting the stage. And one of the things that Shaw had said was identifying, like, does your cultural situation, does that have to do with your whatever you're coming in to see me today? And it's important to identify that up front. It may not have anything to do with it, but it is important to identify that up front. Like, how can we be better advocates for the individual client? So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.